The first sign that something was wrong came with the sunlight. It was a bright, ordinary morning, the kind of morning that makes you believe nothing bad can happen, when Arjun Malhotra stepped into a small cafe on the corner of Rosewood Avenue, carrying the quiet hope of starting over. He had dressed carefully, rehearsed smiles in the mirror, and told himself that this blind date could be the beginning of a new chapter. But as he sat down by the window, unaware eyes scanning the room, fate was already moving toward him on soft footsteps, holding a secret that would shatter his expectations and rebuild his heart in ways he never imagined. Before the story pulls you deeper, let me ask you something from the heart. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that even the most awkward or painful moments can lead to something beautiful, then please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Stories of Kindness. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Arjun had not always been a hopeful man. At 34, he carried the quiet exhaustion of someone who had loved deeply and lost painfully. 2 years earlier, a broken engagement had left him wary of promises and suspicious of perfect smiles. Since then, his days were filled with work as a city planner and long solitary walks, convincing himself that loneliness was safer than disappointment. This blind date was not his idea. It was arranged by his older cousin, who believed Arjun's life had become too small, too silent. With reluctance and a trace of curiosity, he agreed, telling himself that at worst it would be an hour of polite conversation and an awkward goodbye. The cafe was alive with daytime energy. Sunlight spilled across wooden tables, people laughed softly, and the smell of fresh coffee wrapped the room in warmth. Arjun chose a seat near the window, watching the city breathe outside. He checked his phone once, then again, rereading the message that said his date would arrive shortly. Her name was listed as Maya, nothing more. No photo, no details. That anonymity made his chest feel tight, but he stayed, gripping his coffee cup as if it were an anchor. That was when Neha, the waitress, approached his table. She was young, with observant eyes and a calm presence that felt oddly grounding. She placed the menu down gently, but instead of walking away, she hesitated. Her fingers brushed the table, and in one smooth motion, she slid a folded piece of paper next to his cup. Her eyes met his for just a second, filled with something that looked like concern, maybe even urgency, before she moved on as if nothing had happened. Confused, Arjun stared at the paper. His first instinct was to ignore it. This was ridiculous, he thought, a silly coincidence or some cafe promotion. But curiosity won. He unfolded it slowly, heart beating louder with every crease. Written in neat handwriting were the words that made his stomach drop and his mind race. "She's not who you think she is. Please be careful." For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. Arjun looked around, suddenly hyper-aware of every movement, every glance. Who was she, his date? Why would a stranger warn him? Fear and doubt tangled inside him, reviving old wounds he thought had healed. He considered standing up and leaving immediately, letting caution win. But something about the note felt sincere, not malicious. He folded it back, slipping it into his pocket, deciding to wait. He had already come this far. Minutes later, a woman walked into the cafe, scanning the room nervously. She had short hair that caught the light, wore a simple blue dress, and carried herself with a vulnerability that was hard to miss. When her eyes found Arjun, relief spread across her face. She smiled, tentative and hopeful, and walked toward him. This was Maya. At least, that's what he assumed. She looked nothing like the danger his mind had started to imagine. She looked like someone who was also afraid of being disappointed. As she sat down, Arjun studied her carefully. Every word she said filtered through the warning echoing in his head. She spoke about her job at a local library, her love for early morning walks, and her awkwardness with blind dates. There was a gentleness to her presence, an honesty that felt unpracticed. And yet, the note refused to let him relax. He found himself searching for cracks, signs of deception, waiting for the moment when the truth would reveal itself. The date moved forward under the bright afternoon sun, but Arjun felt trapped between two realities. On one side was the woman across from him, laughing softly, stirring her coffee, sharing pieces of her life. On the other was the folded note in his pocket, heavy with implication. His responses became guarded, his smile cautious. Maya noticed the shift, confusion flickering across her face, but she didn't push. Instead, she mirrored his restraint, creating a quiet distance neither of them knew how to bridge. Neha returned occasionally to refill their cups, her eyes flicking briefly toward Arjun each time, as if silently asking whether he had understood. That only deepened his unease. Finally, unable to carry the weight any longer, Arjun excused himself and stepped outside, needing air, needing clarity. The city noise rushed in, grounding him. He pulled the note out again, reading it slowly. "She's not who you think she is. It didn't say she was dangerous. It didn't say she was bad." It was vague, almost protective. When he went back inside, he didn't return to his table immediately. Instead, he approached Neha at the counter, his voice low and steady despite the storm inside him. He asked about the note, about why she felt the need to warn him. Neha's face softened, and she took a deep breath before explaining. She told him that earlier that week she had seen Maya come into the cafe with an older woman, someone who had spoken harshly, controlling her every move. Neha had overheard enough to realize that Maya was being pushed into this date under pressure, possibly hiding who she really was just to meet someone else's expectations. The warning was not about danger, but about truth. Relief and guilt washed over Arjun in equal measure. The fear he had built collapsed, replaced by something heavier. He returned to the table with a different heart, seeing Maya now not as a mystery to be solved, but as a person carrying her own quiet burden. The rest of the afternoon unfolded differently. The tension eased, replaced by openness. They spoke about expectations placed on them by others, about the versions of themselves they felt forced to present to the world. Without realizing it, Arjun shared his past heartbreak, the way it had taught him to guard himself too tightly. As the sunlight shifted and shadows lengthened, Maya's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She admitted that she had almost cancelled the date, that she was tired of pretending to be someone she wasn't just to please her family. That confession changed everything. The blind date that had begun with suspicion transformed into something real, something human. They weren't perfect strangers anymore. They were two people choosing honesty over fear. Hours later, as they prepared to leave, Arjun thanked Neha with a quiet nod that carried more meaning than words. Outside, the city felt different, brighter somehow. The date didn't end with promises or dramatic declarations. Instead, it ended with a sense of calm, the understanding that sometimes disasters are just misunderstood beginnings. Before we reach the ending, take a moment right here and drop a comment below about what kindness means to you. This small act helps our community grow and reminds others that empathy still matters. In the days that followed, Arjun found himself thinking less about the warning and more about the courage it took for Neha to intervene, for Maya to show up. Despite her fears and for himself to stay instead of running, he realized that the note hadn't ruined the date, it had saved it. It forced him to look beyond assumptions, to listen more deeply. Life, he understood, doesn't always send clear signals. Sometimes it sends folded notes, placed gently beside your coffee, asking you to slow down and see the truth. Weeks later, Arjun and Maya met again, this time without expectations, without pressure. Just two people walking through the city in daylight, sharing stories, learning each other's rhythms. The past didn't vanish, but it loosened its grip, and in its place grew something fragile and hopeful, built on honesty and second chances. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness from a stranger can change the course of a life, please like this video, share it, and let us know your thoughts. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who might need them today. And remember, sometimes what feels like a disaster is actually an invitation to see people as they truly are, and to let yourself be seen too.